Hey everyone, welcome to this video. Today we're going to take a look at the NVX QBSTA 10P Power Enclosed Underseat Subwoofer by NVX. Now NVX makes two powered underseat subwoofers, both an 8-inch and a 10-inch. This is the larger 10-inch version, which has 200W RMS powered by a Class D amplifier. Now without further ado, let's go ahead and do a quick unboxing, show you guys what comes in the box, also show you guys how to install it in a vehicle here, and see how it sounds. So inside the box, of course, we have the subunit itself. We have a remote controlled sub-level adjuster here that you can mount on the dash if you would like. We also have some mounting hardware as well as a high-level input adapter for the high-level inputs in the sub if you already use those. And lastly, we have a quick user manual as well as some little warranty information. So taking a look at the subwoofer itself, of course, we have our ground, remote turn wire, and positive 12 volts in. You do not have to use a remote turn-on wire for the sub, as I believe either the high and or low level inputs will automatically turn on the sub once it detects an output. Of course, we have our 15 amp built-in fuse for that built-in amplifier. We have our remote control plug-in here. Of course, we have our low-pass filters, our bass boost, and our input voltage here, so you can adjust all that. Of course, we have our phase 0 and 180 degrees. We have our on and off for the auto power on via those high and low level inputs, so you can turn that on and off here if you guys are using a remote turn on wire. And of course, we have a little power indicator telling you that the sub power is on. So pretty basic stuff here. Like I said, I'll show you guys how that auto power on works if it has the low level RCAs, so that's how we'll be hooking the sub up. Overall, the build construction is very nice. It is made of an aluminum housing here. It is very thin. I believe this is just under 3 inches thick. We'll go ahead and measure that here in a second. But overall, not too much else to see. Of course, there are mounting feet in 4 locations on the bottom. And of course, we have our sticker here that just tells you a little bit about the unit itself. So yeah, let's go ahead and hook this up via a aftermarket radio, and again, low level inputs, and I'll show you guys how the wiring and everything routes from the radio. Now for this subwoofer, I'd highly recommend using an 8 or 10 gauge wiring kit, depending if it's pure copper or copper clad aluminum. Now here we have an 8 gauge copper clad aluminum kit, which should be plenty enough wire for this 200W RMS sub. Now I'd highly recommend using a fuse within the first 12 inches of the wire, so if anything goes wrong, anything grounds out or anything like that, it will blow this fuse instead of transferring all that power and everything into the vehicle and potentially catching stuff on fire. So highly recommend using some sort of fuse, which usually comes in wiring kits, and mounting it about there within the first 12 inches of the wiring. And then of course, running that wiring inside the car through the firewall, and of course into your mounting location, which is going to be under the seat for this subwoofer. So as you guys can see under my driver's seat here, the wiring comes out, and that is where we'll be mounting the subwoofer. So in terms of the head unit, I'll be showing you guys today, this is an aftermarket JVC, which is quite a few years old now. It is the KD-X340 BTS. Bluetooth, USB, all that good stuff. It also has 4-volt preamps, so that'll be going into the RCA inputs on the sub. The sub can use high-level inputs, so if you are using this with a factory radio, for example, you guys can go ahead, hook this up to the speaker level inputs, and the sub will accept those inputs in terms of outputting the subwoofer sounds and everything like that. So just a quick look under my seat here. Of course, we have the RCA subwoofer outs from the head unit themselves. We have the white remote turn-on wire, which again is not necessary, but I went ahead and ran it anyway since it's very easy to do with the aftermarket head unit. Then we have a ground wire, which should be the same gauge as your power wire. Mine is grounded to a chassis bolt here where the seat mounts. Now you always want a good ground, so you want to go ahead and wherever you're going to ground it, fairly close to the subwoofer itself, you want to basically sand down any paint or anything that is between the ground cable and the body itself. So I went ahead and did that here on this grounding location. Again, this is about a 14-inch wire or so, very short, easy to get to underneath the seat here. So that is the grounding location I use. And then of course we have our red power wire coming from the harness through the firewall and straight to the battery. So now we can just go ahead and slide the subwoofer in, basically hook everything up where it needs to go, And that is basically it to install this here with the aftermarket head unit and my pre-installed wiring kit. So as you guys can see, everything is hooked up underneath the seat here. I really didn't change any of the bass boost or gain settings. I just set the input voltage for the preamp RCAs to 4 volts because I believe that is what the JVC head unit outputs according to its manual. So I just went and adjusted that from 3 to 4 volts. I'm not exactly sure what difference that makes. Let's go ahead and turn on the car and go ahead and get our first listen. Okay, so I've got everything pretty much dialed in here. I'm sure there's going to be a little tweaking that I need to do down the road, but for now it sounds pretty good. Everything is hooked up correctly. I've got the subwoofer just Velcro to the floor for the time being. Now obviously to get the most performance and most reverberations throughout the cabin, you want to hard mount this to the floor of the vehicle. I know in a lot of newer vehicles, drilling into the floor really doesn't sound appealing, so for now it's just basically sitting on the carpet with a little bit of Velcro so it doesn't slide around and move around too much. But let's go ahead and listen to a few sample clips. This is going to be copyright free music just in case. I don't want any problems with that in the future. So let's go ahead and take a listen. So that's pretty much going to wrap up this review of the NVX underseat subwoofer. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I'll do my best to answer them. In terms of sound, sure, this is not going to provide you with that like 12-inch ported, huge box with a 500-watt amplifier sound or anything like that, but this is going to fill in the lows nicely in any stock sound system without a subwoofer already built in. And in terms of retrofitting it either to an aftermarket or OEM head unit, it is going to be very simple overall. The hardest part is really going to be running the wiring to the subwoofer and where you want to mount it and everything like that. So well worth the money in my opinion. Hopefully you guys found this review helpful.
Yeah,